Hello everyone, this is Lunch, and I wanted to do a little deck profile on the deck that I use for Galactics. I've also been using it for PQs that I've played in as well, and I just kind of wanted to go over my choices. I was playing Yoda Red with Force, and this deck can be played a lot of different ways, so I kind of wanted to go over like my reasonings and some changes I'd probably make going forward. I'm just going to go over the list first. So we start off with 2-0 and Lars. This card is really strong in here because when it dies, you can search Ray from the top of your deck. And because it says draw, you get to trigger your Ray. You can also grab Luke, which is a really important card for the deck. And the nice thing about being extra restore is if you're playing against aggro decks, they kind of have to kill it. They can't just leave it there. The restore to every turn is just too powerful. It's also really good against space decks, things like Vader Yellow, because they can't really answer it, right? At least not efficiently. And if they do answer it, a lot of times you're going to take something out with a Ray. 3 Force Throw, this is obvious, really powerful card right now. We're not really going to go into that. 2 Adi Gala and 3 Yaddle. I'm going to talk about these together. Starting with a 2-4 Force unit is just really strong in this deck. It allows you to set up Force for Kiadi on 4, and it usually allows you to trade positively as well, or at least keep the unit around long enough for a You're My Only Hope play on the next turn or two. 2 C3PO. So when Yoda puts a card at the top of the deck, you can use C3PO to draw it. It's a really good late game engine, as well as doing things like placing Ray on top and calling 5, since this draws as well. You'll get to trigger it. 3 Night Sister Warrior. This is just a good Force unit you can play on 1. I like this more than the shielded one because it has that draw card. So you can draw Ray with it after you stack. You can use it to gain Force. It's also just good in late game because you can just kind of throw it out there, and if your opponent answers it, it's fine. For 3 drops, we have Red Squadron X-Wing. This is another thing that draws, like I said, setting up for your Ray plays. Also, if you notice, a lot of this deck is just generating advantage as well, which is how you beat a lot of the control decks. And this is just another card you can throw there. Also against things like Space Fader, sometimes you'll just play it as a 3 resource 3/4 because it can trade into multiple units and kind of keep you up. 3 Yoda 3 cost, card is still insane. Restore 2 for a 2/4, as well as drawing a card when defeated. Nothing really bad about that. 2 Open Fire. So this deck's plan is to try and stay around till turn 7 and to try and win from there. So having something that can just simply deal 4 damage is really useful. It kills Falcon, it kills Grogu and Han too, which is really important because Grogu could be really tough for this deck to deal with otherwise once it heals once. So Open Fire is actually a really important card. 3 You're My Only Hope. This is the best card in the deck, hands down, even more than like Force Throw or Ray or anything like that. The ability to do things like play Poe Dameron on 1 or play Luke on 5 just can't be overstated how insanely powerful it is. If you watch my feature match, I even did something as simple as play a Ray on 2. And the reason I did that is just so I could establish a board and kind of force my opponent to have to play around me. The card is downright insane in this deck, and you can do so many crazy things with it. 2 Sharut. Sharut's just a really good card at slowing down ground-based aggro decks. It's also nice because if you notice, I don't really play many Sentinels in here. Most of my defense comes from restore, not from blocking attacks, which I think is good because people have a lot of ways to get around Sentinels right now, but Shird is just so strong that sometimes you'll put him out there and he can just win you the game. That being said, I only play 2 because in a lot of decks he's not particularly useful, and we don't want to like count on him. 3 Kiadi. This card's broken. This card is the whole reason you're playing Force. If you look, I only have, what, 4 cards, I think, that actually use the Force, and 3 of them are Kiadi. So, like, you're always going to have the Force for his effect, and he's just there to draw you cards. You can use him to trigger Ray if you want. You can use him to get ahead. He's just a crazy card in general. 3 Fel the Dragon. This has dual purpose. 1, if your opponent puts a lightsaber on something early, you need a way to out it, because other than that, we don't really have much. Or it's for later in the game, killing things like Crate, killing things like opponents' Lukes, things like that. 2 Poe Dameron. Poe's just a really strong card. You can put him in on play 2 on turn 2 with You're My Only Hope. And against a lot of like more front-loaded decks, that kind of just wins. If you're playing against Sabine and you're Your Only Hope on 2 into a Poe Dameron, now all of a sudden their leader can't flip without dying. and it's just crazy good. It's also a really good card to just kind of throw out there, and then if your opponent doesn't answer it, you get way ahead. 3 Ray, so this is one of the big reasons we're playing Yoda Red other than Force Throw. And whenever you draw this outside of your draw step, you freely get to do 2 to base and 2 to a unit. And with Yoda, since we're drawing a card every turn, we could hit it randomly. We could also stack it on top and then use one of our like 4 or 5 draw effects to draw it and get a trigger. 2 bombing run in the main, so I was really scared of space decks in general. If you notice, we don't have a ton of space. All we have is Red Squadron and Hammerhead. And especially early in the game, we don't really have much ways to interact with space either. Later, we can do things like Luke, we can do things like Fell and Rivals Fall, so we have ways to deal with later in the game, but early it's really hard. If you're playing against like Structured or Space Vader, you need a way to deal with their go wide board, and that's why I main deck the bombing runs. Also, sometimes it's useful against things like Han 2, where you can just happen to kill 2 units, and it's 5 for finishing off 2 units is usually good enough as well. 1 Mace Windu, this is mostly just in here as a way to instantly deal some damage. Him and Hammerhead kind of do the same thing. The reason I'm playing 1 and 2 instead of 3 Hammerhead is sometimes if you don't draw Kiadi, you can be lower on cards. And in that situation where Hammerhead's only doing like 3, it's usually not good enough. That 3 or 4 breakpoint is really important, so I kind of balanced it out. That being said, I've done as much as 12 with Hammerhead before. It's a really crazy card in this deck, because if you resolve like 1 Kiadi, it's usually coming down and just instantly killing something. It's really useful on turn 7 too, because if you have things like Hammerhead and Luke, a lot of times you want to kill something first before you flip your Yoda. So Hammerhead's a really good card to come down, just instantly kill something, and then set up for your Yoda flip. 1 Rivals Fall, you notice I have 1 main, 1 side. This is for pilot leaders as well as other big leaders, mirror matches, things like that. If you end up playing against like Palpatine or like Vader 1, there's just some leaders you can't really deal with Luke. That's what Rivals Fall is for. 3 Lukes, another really key card in the deck, and Restore 3 is just a crazy stat line, and -6ing something will usually kill it. Plus with You're My Only Hope, you can get this out on 5, usually eliminate anything currently on the board, and then you set up a 6/7 Restore 3, where if your opponent doesn't like immediately have a Fell the Dragon, you usually just win the game from that play. 1 Bendu, so I noticed that before when I was just playing Luke and Crate, I would constantly have to get rid of these for either for Force Throw early or for my Yoda flip. For those of you that don't know, when Yoda flips, you discard the top card of your deck. You get to kill something equal to or lower. So Bendu is strictly in there for a discard off Force Throw to deal 8 or flipping on the Yoda turn to kill something 8 or less. It's something you could just throw on top and not care about at all. Sometimes you'll get in the situation where your opponent only has a small unit out and they haven't actually deployed a big unit yet, so you don't 100% know what you're killing with Yoda. Bendu is a good thing you can throw on top of your deck where you're not going to lose any value, but you can still, no matter what they play that turn, kill it. 3 Crate Dragon. So the reason we play 3 is kind of like Bendu, where we want to be able to Force Throw 1 or mill 1 for Yoda, and then still have more to play with later. So that's why we play a full gambit of those. A lot of times Crate Dragon is like the game seal against mid-range decks. If they don't immediately have a Fell the Dragon or something, they're pretty much just dead with Crate once you get to that turn 9. There's also like incidentally, maybe you're only hoping out on turn 7. I've only ever done that like once, but it is a funny play, and if you're ahead in the game, you can kind of just win on that turn. For sideboard, we're going to play 1 Restock, 2 Vigilance, and this is strictly for countering other heavy control decks. You need to be able to restock if they're going to try and mill you out with Vigilance, as well as using our Vigilances to counter this as well. For example, I played against a Palp 2, like the flip-flop one, where they just kept trying to mill me out with Vigilance, and I actually managed to beat them with my own Vigilances, milling them out first. We're going to play a 3rd copy of Bombing Run. Pretty safe, pretty just for Vader Yellow, because we don't want to lose to that deck. 3 Concord Dawn Interceptors. This is for any space-focused deck. There's a lot of them going around right now, and this is just something we can throw out on turn 3 that can kind of shut them down and let us stall until we get our Restore up. One Rivals Fall, a lot of times this comes in, it's just dependent on the leader basically. Is it a leader that's large that we need out immediately? Usually if it's a 6 cost or higher leader, I'll put this in. And then I also play 2 Smoke and Cinders, and for those of you that don't know, it's a little hard to see on here just because these are smaller. Smoke and Cinders says for 5, each player chooses and discards all cards in their hand except 2. And this is really, really strong against especially like yellow-green hyper control. Things like Thrawn, where they do have some draw power, but not nearly as much as you. If you can get a control deck to a point where you can drop this and you have like an Owen and a Yoda on the board, where you have like cards that will draw you cards later, a lot of times they'll be forced to discard some really important things. Because think of it this way, let's say they have Restock, Vigilance, Super Laser Blast, and like a bunch of other removal pieces in their hand, which is pretty common for those decks. Smoke and Cinders basically says, alright, you're either not keeping Restock or Vigilance, which takes away a win condition. You're losing a Super Laser, you're losing the ability to blow my board up. And usually you're getting rid of like 3 or 4 pieces of removal as well. And Yoda functions very well in the late game because of the cycle. You can put all the useless cards on the bottom of your deck, and every card you draw is going to be gas, essentially. Plus, like, putting things like Red Squadron X-Wings out, like, it feels really bad to, like, power the dark side on a Red Squadron X-Wing after it's drawn a card. Like, that basically is just in your favor at that point, and all you really have to worry about is milling out. So going over some of the matchups for aggro decks, you're going to want to, early game, go for Owen, Yaddle, Yoda, and try and get some restoring, get you to mid-game. If you can get to turn 7 against things like Sabine, you're just going to win because Luke and Yoda are going to out-restore any damage they can output. Things like Shuret are really good into that too, if it's a ground-based kind of aggro deck. And for side, a lot of time we'll bring in Vigilances, just because that heal 5 plus remove a card can be very strong. You want to really stay away from C-3PO there, and you want to really keep your Lukes and your My Only Hopes, because if you're playing against an aggressive deck, and you put a Luke out on 5, I don't know if I've ever lost after doing that. It's so strong against aggro. Against mid-range, which is your best matchup, things like Talzin, Han 2, things kind of playing at that speed, this deck is absolutely insane because all you have to do is trade into units, make sure you keep them under control. Once you get to turn 6 and 7, you just get your double removal off Yoda Luke, and you win from there. Nothing they have can really keep up with that. If you need to, you can finish with Crate. A lot of times you won't need to, the game will kind of already be over by then. And then launch your Kiadi Mundis and things like that in the middle somewhere. Just make sure you're removing stuff and you're not getting overwhelmed. Playing against hard control, kind of like I said before, unfortunately our main deck isn't really set up for hard control. A lot of times you're going to lose game 1 and have to win game 2 and 3. That being said, if you're playing the deck with the setup I have, if you notice that you've essentially lost game 1, a lot of times you want to scoop early to make sure you have enough time to play 2 games into hard control, because that can be really hard to do and you don't want to be drawing all your rounds just like on time. Make sure you're making your opponent play at a sufficient rate, because a lot of times this deck will take hard control to game 3. Now, you can win game 1, especially if you see multi-Kiadi Mundis. Basically, what you're going to want to do to try against hard control is just play as much draw as possible. I know that sounds kind of contradictory because they're going to be vigilancing you and like milling cards. But when it comes down to it, if they resolve through vigilances, you're probably going to lose anyway, just because you don't have the push through. Make sure you keep your crates and you're playing your crates. That's a really big deal. You want to put them in a position where you have like a crate plus like 2 units that draw. And you want to make sure that if they super laser blast you, they have to take 8 damage for it. That's basically how you win in the first game. Second game, you have more plans. You can restock Vigilance. You can play for a Smoke and Cinders angle. And you can kind of win through there. Against space in particular, this is something I'm kind of going to go into like the changes I would make at this point. I have been having issues with space-based decks, and it's not so much Vader Yellow. With the bombing runs and stuff like that, you're actually kind of fine against that deck. But I've been having more problem against like the Reconstructed Hauler, or Stolen Hauler, but whatever. It's the 4/5 you play for 3. That card is really problematic for this deck, because if you notice, like, I have Open Fire, I have Bombing Run, like, I have things that do up to 4 damage, but getting to 5 is actually really hard. Pretty much the only way you can do it is Force Throw. So, and especially if they put like a pilot on it, it can get really hard really fast. One of the decks I lost to at Galactics was Kazuda, and he just put a thing on Hauler, and then he discarded my Force Throw with one of his cards, and I just didn't have a way to get through it anymore. So one thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to be putting some of these interceptors in the main deck. My plan right now is to take out a C-3PO and an X-Wing and put 2 interceptors in, and that's been doing really well. I'm also going to take the other C-3PO out and put an Adigala. Put her up to 3. C-3PO is, I've noticed, isn't strong enough. If you play it on turn 1, you're too far behind. Dealing 1 damage back isn't enough, and it also doesn't gain force, which means it doesn't set up for Kiadi later. So like if you go 3PO into an X-Wing, you're kind of SOL. Also, like, it's nice as an engine late game, but you don't really need help at that point, is the thing about it. Like, sure, it might draw you 3 or 4 cards on, like, turn 9 through 12, but if you're getting to turn 9 through 12 with this deck, you're probably winning anyway, so you don't really need it. So that's the main change I would make right now, is C-3PO comes out, we go up to 3 Adi, we take 1 X-Wing out, and we put in 2 Concord Dawn Interceptors. The other change I've been thinking about doing is possibly switching it to a dark side based with the Anakin 6-drop, or just playing the Anakin 6-drop in general. I've noticed a lot less Vader yellows, so I've been considering moving a bombing run and then the Mace Windu, taking that out. So 1 bombing run goes to the sideboard, Mace Windu leaves, and then I put 2 Anakins in the main deck. We can switch Bendu to a Devastator, because we're never really playing Bendu anyways. Devastator does the same thing for us, and I was going to play 1 Force Lightning. So that kind of gives us 2 dark side cards to use. And ideally, we're force throwing the Devastator early in the game and then playing a Anakin. But the nice thing about Anakin as well is he's something we can You're My Only Hope on turn 4, which we don't really have a crazy card to do that with right now. Hammerhead is fine, but a lot of times you want a ground unit. And Mace is only good if you specifically have Force. Plus, I wanted to put some more answers to Lurking Tie. That's another thing I've been having issues with. So that's some stuff I've been testing out going forward. That being said, this deck is really, really strong. It did very well for me at Galactics. I played and went 6-1 day 1. If you want to see my final round 7 match, that was a feature match, which is pretty sick. I did a commentary on it earlier this week. Feel free to take a look if you want to see the deck in action. That's actually a pretty good game to watch. It shows a lot of the tricks and kind of combos that I would use, as well as some plays that are a little less usual, but show like the insane flexibility of the deck. And when it comes down to it, that's what I really like about this. You can basically play at any speed. If you want to go fast, you can just drop a bunch of 2-drops. If you want to go slow, you can wait, play some Kiadi Mundis, come back later with Luke. It just has a lot of stuff you can do, and it really rewards players' skill and like taking different lines, as well as giving you a lot of options. It might be a little tricky when you start to play. It does have a lot of things, especially with Yoda's cycling ability, like what to keep, what to get rid of, when do you go for your My Only Hope, when do you get rid of it, kind of thing. That's a big area of like how you play the deck. All in all, super, super insanely fun deck. If you guys have any ideas, please forward them to me, because this deck is really complex. So I really like seeing new ideas people have for it. I don't know the next time I have a major event for it. I went 5-2 with it at my PQ. Was that last weekend? Yeah, last weekend. I went 5-2, just barely missed top 8. I think I was like 14th or something like that. Deck still did really well. The things I lost to there was I lost to someone having double breaking in for exact game, which was really unfortunate because it was through a Chirrut too. And I lost to Sabine, which Sabine's always kind of a coin flip, unfortunately. Just kind of the nature of that deck. We have to play through ground, and Sabine's pretty decent against things that go ground late. That being said, if you're My Only Hope against Sabine, usually you win. Whether you're bringing Poe out early on turn 2, like I did against 1, or luking on 5, it's usually enough to kind of just win the game. Because the only out they have for Luke really is like ambushing in a Wrecker, and the Wrecker dies to the Luke, so it doesn't stay around and provide a problem. Excuse me. So yeah, that's the deck. If you have any ideas or concepts for it, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, please like and subscribe.